Hello and welcome to the Hustle Over Everything podcast. Today is a special day. We have Pierre Laguerre in the podcast. I'm really excited for it. Pierre is a purebred hustler. He's the CEO of Fledging, a trucking marketplace that connects businesses that need qualified, vetted drivers. He's a father of three and recently has been featured on The Pitch and won $100,000 from Chamilionaire and Daymond John on a pitch contest as well. Also, he just loves pitching. He also won $50,000 from AASU Harvard Business Fund. I'm excited to have him on. On the podcast today, he's going to talk about his trucking marketplace. Owen, what do you think about the pod, man?
Man, Al, this guy is just a different breed. I mean, just the way, the audience, when we're getting into the story in a couple of minutes, you're really just going to hear how this guy just started from nothing. And he had every obstacle to really give up and really throw in the towel. But everything that came in from how crazy that story about him with his son, him getting mugged and him getting like medals in his forehead and on top of his head, leaving the hospital and then going to go start another bit to go build his business.
Insane. Absolutely insane. Honestly, I think his hustle was one of the most notable things in the pod. He really went deep when it comes to being fired, being made fun of, and just being humble as well. I'm like, all right, well, I'm back on zero. Let's get back to it, Man, you really covered a lot on the pod, man. I really can't wait for you guys to hear it. It's a really good podcast.
Really inspirational story.
Yeah,
this is one of our best entrepreneurial stories that we've had so far of someone legit living the hustle over everything life. I mean, if you can just imagine this guy, he lost his business, and you're going to hear this, but what does he do? He has one of the greatest hustles he thinks about, and he goes then picks up a bucket, goes door to door to businesses and asks them, can I clean your windows for only, I think, for a small price. And he goes and gets businesses. He raises money. He uses that money back to his fleeting business, and he's back up and going. So that's just a little insight to what you guys are going to get today from Pierre. He's going to tell you a really great story about his life, his business, and how he's really building his platform to really help truck drivers and assist them with their logistics.
Most definitely. Also, I just wanted to put it out there for you guys. Be prepared. There's a little bit of Slack messages and things that happened in it. So we got to turn it off, but yeah, it was just something that was in there. So our apologies, of course, from now on, all the guests won't have it, but just to be advised and don't mind that when you listen to the pod, guys.
As we both know right now, it's quarantine, right? A lot of people, we cannot meet with these people in a studio. Pierre's in New York. So we connected with him on LinkedIn, and these are just some things you go through when you're using Zoom to record podcasts, right? Now, you hear a lot of dings, you hear a lot of slacks, and that's how you know someone's really hustling, right? They're getting notifications from all their employees and people, and that's what you're going to get, right? So we apologize for that, and just look past that. We did a great job editing it and making sure you don't really hear the pitch of it, but really just take the content from this episode and use it as a way to really inspire you to really, get to the next level.
Most definitely. So let's get into the business tip of the week. This is a new segment we're going to try out with you guys. So let us know what you think of it. The business tip we want to focus on is actually mentioned in one of our previous pods, the Andrea Henry episode. I believe it's episode 31. 31, right?
Yeah.
31. Episode 31, she covers how she scales her business from 0 to 6 figures. And one of the key elements she had in it was using business cards being sent to the house, not just giving them out like flyers, being sent to the house with a gift card or with a specific gift meant for that person. That is an extra touch that adds a lot to the
rapport. Being memorable,
Yeah, 100%. Being memorable, just developing on that rapport, and just becoming, further becoming that trust and likable person that you want to give your money to. So I really like that tip. It's really
because a lot of people spend time just handing out business cards. You and I saw this where we've done Afrotech. We saw a lot of people just chucking out different business cards, but that's like the old school way. A lot of people like the personalization now. Mm-hmm. So the more you do the more you go the extra mile, the more you're actually getting closer to actually getting that person as a client. And you don't got to do quantity. It's all about the quality of the connection at the end of the day. Yeah,
most definitely. I even like to add on to that. You're familiar with Valuetainment, right? Patrick Bet-David.
Patrick Bet-David. Oh yeah, man, I love him.
One thing that he does, or he did in the past, was that he used to send people a foot. No, wow.
A foot?
I said a foot. Wow, that's embarrassing. I said a foot. I really said a foot. I meant a shoe.
A shoe.
He sent people a shoe and said, hey, I already just got my shoe in the door. Now let me get my other foot in. As like
right.
You know what I'm saying? As a creative way to try and get into the heads of somebody trying to sell to. I thought that was really interesting.
That's really good, man.
Yeah,
I mean, if you get that, like, you're legit. Like, this guy actually thought outside the box. You know?
Yeah, you put a whole foot outside the box. That's gonna be like, you should name this podcast now The Foot. Nah, I'm joking.
Foot, man.
But yeah, that's an interesting tip that I found really interesting. So think about which ways you can touch your customers and potential customers that are unique and creative. Whether it be sending out a Starbucks gift card to their home, sending a foot, sending
sending something personable, right? Something that can relate to their business. If they're in agency, like, hey, here's like this magazine I thought you'd enjoy that can help your agency, right?
Well, some things that I've seen given out include for Christmas, someone gave chocolate covered fruits. I thought it was interesting because it's kind of in the middle between unhealthy and healthy. So more people will have it in the company. I've seen calendars. One person got like it was weird. It was like a gay calendar. I was like, but he's a straight male.
He's a straight guy, yo.
Yeah, it was.
That showed he was really paying attention then.
Yeah, he was trying at least. Yeah. Maybe he paid too much attention.
For effort, man.
Exactly, exactly. But yeah. So that's the tip of the week, guys. Let us know what you think about that. Have you tried this before? DM us and let us know about Instagram at 24/7hustler, and let us know what you've tried in the past. I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say.
Exactly, Al. And now, we go into our message from Hustler Nation. So Hustler Nation, listen up, right? The main thing that really, really inspired me and I really want you to take away from this episode is the persistence. Persistence. That is the theme of this episode. And just from listening to the story, you'll understand why. With persistence, you can really get through anything. There's nothing that you can't do there's nothing that you can do. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of things that you can do, right? But a lot of them are really, really, really hard. But one of the things that people lack on is that power to drive through and have that willpower to continue going on. When you listen to Pierre's story, you're going to hear the stories of how he lost a lot of things. He got injured, he got mugged, but he really just came out on top just because of sheer willpower. So one of the key messages going into this week is really learning persistence and having that become a part of you. If it's a thing you're trying to learn, if it's video editing, if it's working on a project that you really got to go through a learning curve, just persist through that. There is like a hidden mystical energy out there that really gives you anything you want if you really persist and go through. So always remember that anything is yours as long as you just keep going after it and just keep breaking those walls. Whatever is yours is going to be yours as long as you persist. So take that message today, Hustler Nation. Keep persisting, keep grinding, and always remember the world is yours, baby.
Let's go.
All right, let's get into it.
Hey guys, let's get into our housekeeping items. All right, so for free, you can rate and review the podcast on Apple or iTunes. If you're on Spotify, follow us. If you're on Google Play, make sure to hit subscribe and auto download so you'll be notified when a fresh piece of content is out and it'll be downloaded and ready to go. If you are on socials, which you most likely are, share our content. Hit it in the stories, so it doesn't have to be there in your feed. If we get it, you don't want to mess up your feed, so just share us in the stories and tag us. We really appreciate it, and of course, we repost you. And just keep sharing. We're trying to grow our ecosystem here, so we appreciate the love. On socials, once again, you can follow us at 247 Hustlers on Twitter. On Instagram, it's 24/7 Hustler, 247 Hustler. On Facebook, it is Hustle Over Everything. Now, for paid options, I'm missing an option. For our email list, we are working on a killer email newsletter. It is called the 24/7 Hustler, which covers news in business, music, and culture all through the lens of entrepreneurship. Now, paid. There's two paid options that you can choose. One is our Proud to Pay program that's in the link in this description. So just hit that, and whatever donation you choose to send us, we'd greatly appreciate. The next is our merch. On our website, we have a variation of merch from t-shirts to mugs that all have our logos on it and help support the program. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Now let's get back into the show.
Pierre, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you guys for having me. Pleasure.
Absolutely. So to start things off, we want to really go from the beginning. We know you immigrated to the United States from Haiti. Talk about that early childhood from from Haiti to the States.
Coming to America.
Coming to America. Oh man, that was really, although it was one of the best journey that I look forward to having in my life as a kid growing up in Haiti. We were a third world country, but also it was much of cultural shock for me as well, because, you have this perception of what America looked like. In your head, you've seen everything on TV, you've seen everything that looked beautiful.
Yeah.
And again, the part that I landed was in the rough side. It was in the ghetto. It was in Brooklyn, in East Flatbush. And it was very shocking to just see how going from living in a third world country to seeing how the culture in America was. And I think that quickly changed my entire perception as well, because from there, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to go to Harvard and be a neurologist. But when I got here, that changed automatically. I feel like it changed overnight. I went from dreaming of becoming a doctor and just dreaming of staying alive, because that community was just so tough. And, the norm for a young Black man my age, what we were seeing was pretty much, gangbanging, murdering, drug dealing, street was filled with addict. So that was the norm. So that was pretty much a very cultural shock for me, coming from Haiti and coming over here saying, hey, look, you know what? I'm coming for this American dream, but this is what I was dealt with. But I think also, too, the fact that I was just so stuck on achieving that dream, that goal it was, I think being in that community also made me realize that I didn't want to become a statistic and I didn't want to become a product of my environment. So I was always looking for ways to kind of get myself out of that community, as much as I hated to be around it. But it was kind of like always a reminder of showing me that, the world has a lot more to offer. You don't have to kind of like let this be the end of your story. So still kind of keep pushing my head, pushing myself forward.
Man, I definitely identify with that, man. Growing up, I'm from this place in Toronto called Malvern, and Malvern's the type of place where, like, if you're to tell somebody, yo, I'm from Malvern, it's like, oh, okay, like, kind of like Brooklyn or like a Harlem would be, So hearing that this resonates to me 100%. How old were you when you touched down?
I was 15 when I came in.
Oh, so it's like right in the middle of everything.
Absolutely. So just like right in between, like I would say, Haiti, brother, America made me a man, right? So it's just like, coming here at that age of 15 years old is like, just the perfect age to truly understand. Like as a teenager, you knew from right from wrong, and you seen certain things. So I was very conscious of the way the culture was here and also what it was back home. I think it was pretty much easy for me to kind of quickly adapt. Before you knew it, it felt like I was born and raised here. I had to adapt so quick.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was like, you mentioned you want to be a neurologist. What was that driven by? Was it your own desire, or was it the pressure from your background with parents? Education is paramount. What was that reasoning for wanting to be a neurologist out of all things you could be?
And that's interesting, right? But as you know, all Haitian parents, they do want their children to become a nurse or a doctor or engineer. that's just the norm. But I don't think that was the one of the main things in my household. My mother was a seamstress, and my stepfather had a welding business. So I kind of grew up around where my mom already had their own business. But the neurology idea came in from me. I was always like a brilliant dude in school in Haiti, like always having good grades. But my behavior was just so horrible, right? I used to always do things that would land me in trouble. So I used to always reason with myself and say, okay, well, I know if I do X, Y, and Z, I'm going to get a whooping, I'm going to get in trouble. Even though I know it, I'm still going to do it. So for me was, what force driving me to act in this manner, although I know I'm going to get a whipping for doing it. So that's when I started really becoming like more interested in the mind and the brain, and started really thinking, who does control the mind? Does the brain control the mind? Like, who control the actions that we do every day? So that's the reason I wanted to become a neurologist, just because of my bad behavior. And I was saying, although I was conscious of the trouble I was going to get into, but I would still do the same horrible thing, and I just wanted to know what was pushing that behavior. So that's why I wanted to be a neurologist.
The psychology behind it.
Yeah,
absolutely, yes.
Got you. So then, all right. So now, how did you go from wanting to be a say it again?
Neurologist.
Sorry, excuse my French. From a neurologist to a truck driver. Like, what was that pathway?
That's a totally opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah,
absolutely, totally opposite. Well, like I was saying, just coming in and living in Brooklyn, like I said, like going from dreaming of becoming a doctor, I realized, okay, well, the amount of time that I was going to take to become a doctor, to actually pull myself out of that community, although it was something that, I did see a reality of it, but the environment that I was living in, it felt like, man, I can't do 8 years. I can't do another 10 years of waiting until I graduate to get some good earnings, to be able to move out of that community. It was much more like, how do I get out now, right? And trucking was one way that I was thinking, well, maybe I could just get on the road and just drive a truck and not have to come back, and, and just kind of enjoy life in that sense. And maybe, hopefully, I could save enough money and then go back to school and then still pursuing becoming a doctor. But once I became a truck driver, I really kind of fell in love with being over the road, start learning the ins and outs of trucking. And I think I fell in love with the entrepreneur side of it. And I just started going for it full throttle.
What do you love about trucking? Like, I've never heard anybody say they really love trucking. So like, I'm super curious there.
I mean, for me, it was, I'm always a short dude, right? I'm 5'6". So it's like always seeing a big truck driving around. I used to always kind of amazed by it, even being in that community. I used to see them passing around. I said, man, one day, I got to drive these trucks. I got to see how it feels to drive these trucks. And I think that drive also kind of led me to really, really going into it, like being curious about what it's really like to drive them. And once I really started driving them, the love for it was just kind of like, being open road, you on the highway, and I'm talking about you driving a big rig. I think it's much more like, hey, look, people respecting what you driving on the road. Don't nobody want to mess with you. So it was more like for those reasons that it was like, okay, yeah, I'm driving a big rig, like stay out of my lane, and kind of end up falling with the entire process and even learning the business of it.
What's one of the things, like, people, when I imagine truck driving, it just seems, the way you spoke about it is how I would not really think about it. I think about it, you're sitting in this truck, it's a big load to move around. It's long hours. You're just behind the wheel and you've got to stay focused for long periods of time. How do you overcome that monotonous side of it? Because I'm sure, I mean, I'm not going to answer for you, but that's the way I see it. But do you see it like that sometimes?
No, sometimes, but the reality of it can be like that sometimes. It can perceive like that at times, right? Because you don't know. But also, this is another reason why fleeting exists today, right? Is because we want to destigmatize that part right here of trucking. People just think it's just like sitting in the rig and, driving a long truck and long trailers. But really, if you really look at the bright side of it, you really get to explore the entire country. Like, you get to really see different places that you've never been, meet different people, see different side of the world. So for me, it was, although yes, it did feel like it's a long drive, but also that was therapeutic for me as well, right? Just being a way to just kind of get away from people and just be on the road and listen to some country music, listen to some R&B, just whatever it was, it became therapeutic to me. So I believe a lot of drivers that's driving trucks, not just because it's just a fun thing. I think every driver, there's a passion behind it. Like, why they're on the road. Like, a lot of them is just say, hey, look, I just don't like to work with people on my back, where I like my own freedom. Not in an office where there's a supervisor on my shoulder watching what I'm doing. So there's different reasons why people drive trucks. But for me, it was number one, it was therapeutic for me. And it was a way of me kind of escaping my current, reality at the time. So it became really, really personal for me driving trucks to where it's like, I didn't feel like it was a problem if I was driving from New York to California and it was going to take me 4 or 5 days to get there. At least I know that was 4 or 5 days I had with myself, with nature, in the road, in a truck. And to me, it was just the best connection I've ever had.
Yeah. It must feel that time like you're driving, you're actually dreaming, you're thinking about your future. You're
where
plotting.
majority of my ideas come from. That's majority of my ideas, everything I've done, every ability that I've found in myself to push forward, coming from sitting on that road, because I had so many times to kind of like think with myself and reason with myself. And sometimes I used to think maybe I'm crazy, right? Like this, it's okay to ask yourself a question as long as you don't answer yourself. But for me, it was just like, I was really having a conversation with myself a lot of time in my own head. And when things were bad, I used to always, even where I am today, I used to always picture myself being in that same position. Although I was in a truck, I used to always see what myself looked like 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 7 years down the line. So that's why I went from being a truck driver to owning a fleet and to being a CEO of a company now, because I never just saw myself as a truck driver. I just kind of look at trucking was a vehicle for me to get to my end goal. So for me, it was being able to embrace every part of it.
How long did it take you to get from a truck driver to owning the fleet?
You said, how long does it take what?
How long did it take you to go from being a truck driver to owning a fleet?
Well, there's no specific timeline around that, but it's also very important that, once you get a CDL license first, you have to gain some experience first and work for companies and understand the ropes. Usually what I see do happen, though, some truck drivers, they get their CDL, and after a year, they want to go and get their own trucks and become owner operators, which is one of the worst things that they can do. My advice to that, I would say, hey, look, if you're a truck driver, you want to own your own fleet, at least spend some time in understanding the ups and downs, understand the game, understand what supply chain is, understand who moves the freight and who controls it, and have that experience. And when you have that experience, I think it'll become a lot more easier for you to become a fleet owner, because you have some leverage on the game. But when you don't understand it, when you're just a truck driver, you only have 3 years of experience, 3 months of experience or 1 year experience, and you want to go out there and purchase a rig. This is one of the biggest mistakes that, hundreds of thousands of truckers are making every day, is trying to rush and go out there and purchasing these assets without having properly truly understand what is supply chain and what is affecting their bottom line.
For our listeners, Pierre, can you describe what a rig is?
A rig, yeah. So a rig is a tractor trailer. Pretty much, it could be a flatbed that's holding pretty much heavy materials or heavy size material. So a flatbed length of 53 foot, or a trailer that's 53 foot length. It could be a refrigerator that's holding perishable item. So a rig is when you see an 18-wheeler, got the head of the truck and it has the other part of the trailer attached to it, which is the combination. So this is what we call a rig. So it's an 18-wheeler that we see on the roads today.
Sounds good.
Gotcha.
So you had you started your company and then you went to owning 2 companies. Talk about your first company and then starting your second company and running both at the same time.
Yeah, that was interesting. So my first company that I had started was when I left pretty much Brooklyn, and I did go to college and study electrical engineering, and it was kind of tough financially. So I decided to drop out of school, right? And I went to work for, at the time, a company called Conway Freight, which is now called XPO Logistics, and went on to work also for another company called Performance Food Group. Performance Food Group now, I started doing deliveries in the same college that I was going to, right? So it was really very kind of fascinating and a very interesting story, because I was really so ashamed. I didn't want my professor to see me. I didn't, want my friends to see me. And one day I ran into my professor while I was doing food deliveries in that school. And he said, Pierre, what's going on, man? What's the matter? He said, why you hiding? I said, well, I tried to school to become a trucker. So, I didn't want to look like a loser. He was like, well, how much are you making a year? I said, well, I'm doing about $90K a year. He said, well, half of these kids is going to graduate and it's not going to see $90K a year. So I want you to be profitable, own it, and be the best trucker that you can be. Right. So honestly, that message really resonated with me. And a year later, I purchased my own truck and became an owner operator in trucking and really started doing financially real good for myself. Moved out of the community in Brooklyn that I was talking about. Was running that one truck at the time, learned a lot, seeing exactly how supply chain was really running, who controls the freight, how the driver is really being affected by not understanding their unit economics, who is the shipper, who is the broker, you understand? Understanding all the moving parts in trucking, it started really becoming fascinating. And unfortunately, I got into a car accident in 2014, and I had lost my first truck and kind of lost everything. And I found myself right back again to that same community, right? And I had to start from scratch. And I think this is where also, again, I had the other opportunity to build my other two businesses that we can talk about now. But when I lost my truck back and found myself back in the hood again, it was much more like, how do I bounce back real quick? What do I do now, right? And thank God I read a book called What the CEO Wants You to Know, right? And that book really changed my entire perception. Then I started thinking, okay, my takeaway from that book was volume and profit margin, right? Then I'm starting thinking, well, okay, how do I apply this into the real world, right? What is it that I can sell in volume? And, and it doesn't have to be super expensive. It could be 5-10 cents, of course. But if I could sell 1 million of them per week, I said I could be profitable. I really couldn't come up with anything attractive at the time. And I lost everything I've had that year in 4 months, went through my savings. I had a vehicle that got repo, gone. My truck ended up being repo. So now, like I said, finding myself back to square one. And I came up with, I said, well, since I was walking everywhere in Brooklyn now, and this is really interesting. And I was seeing a lot of glass from the beauty salon, like, the windows from the beauty salon, the barber shop, the restaurant. Yeah. And I was thinking to myself, I said, well, if I could clean 100 stores, per week and charge them $10 per store, I said, I could make $1,000 a week. I said, maybe I should start a business like that. And I went and told a friend about it. And he was like, man, people are going to think you a crackhead, man. I was like, I said, what do you mean? He said, well, first and foremost, you pull yourself out of here. You moved out of the hood. You got yourself a truck. You're doing good. Now you lost it. Now you back here again talking about you want to clean windows. People going to think you're on drugs. I said, well, at the end of the day, something got to give. I don't have anything. And he's like, yeah, that's true. I said, well, do the math. I said, like, yo, if we get 100 customers, I said, we can make some money. He said, you know what? If you get 50 customers, I'll do it with you. So no lie, man. Like, I'm trying to make this one short as I can.
Make it as long as you can, man. It's okay.
Man, look, I took him on his offer. I woke up the following morning. I solicited the entire Brooklyn. Hey, I started knocking on doors like, hey, my name is Pierre. We have a service that specializes in glass cleaning. We'll do it X, Y, and Z. That same day, I had 72 stores agree for me to clean their glass. I borrowed $80 from my little sister, ran to Home Depot, got me 2 buckets, some towels, and some spongy. Bro, no lie, with no shame in our game again, we went full throttle and started cleaning glass. In 3 months, we made $62,000. We had all the Metro PCS, all the 7-Elevens, and that's the money that I took that started my next company, which is Mac Transport, that I grew into another $2.2 million in revenue and then built another trucking company.
Damn. God damn, bro.
Hold on.
That is actually hustle that's over insane. Everything right there, bro.
100%. Hold on. So you got 75 clients in a day.
72.
72.
Yeah.
What? Let's break that down. So when did you start in the morning? And how did you walk into 72 in a day? Break that down. Or are you calling?
No, just walked in, just regular with a little notebook in my hand with a pen, and just walked in. As you know, Brooklyn, the way it's set up, all the stores are very close to each other. So there's a strip like Nostrand Avenue or Flatbush Avenue. There's so many different competitive stores right next to each other, right? Supermarkets, bars, coffee shops, restaurants, beauty salons. All of them is like right next to each other. So pretty much, so for me, the scouting for these customers wasn't too hard because they was right next to each other. Gotcha, so it's like, I'll go on there, say, no, thank you, no, I don't want it. I'll pass, move on to the next one, move on to the next one, move on to the next one. And like I said, by the end of the day, I had 70 stores that agreed for me to start the following Monday.
Damn.
And my interest was, hey, hi, my name is Pierre. I see your glass, hey, look, I don't know when's the last time, you clean your glass, as, kind of understand, like, customers, they feel more comfortable. Sorry, this is my alarm. Like, started talking to the customers and tell them, like, hey, look, your customers are a little more comfortable when you see your glasses a little clean. They can see through your business. They give them more like a welcome feel. And I started really speaking to customers about that and tell them, like, hey, look, we could do this service twice a week to keep your glass clean. You don't ever have to worry about doing it yourself or climbing a ladder, have to clean nothing on your glass. We take care of it twice a week for, some customers was charging $20 a week. Someone was charging $80 a week. Someone was charging $120 per week. So, definitely. So,
so if any of you guys are looking for a hustle, Listen, you can make that out of anything.
Anything, man.
Anything.
Like legit, I think, Pierre, once you're pressed for money and you have no way out, it seems as if like your mind goes into like a different level, and it's like it's like by any means necessary that you've gotta make it happen. And I think you acted on that, and you just window cleaning, easy money, 1 + 1 = 2. Let's do it, and you just moved.
No, absolutely, man. But to be honest with you, that's not even the end of the story, man, because it gets even more crazier than that. So from when we built that company in the window, and I said, okay, let me go back into trucking. I built the first staffing agency. That staffing agency was also because I know that truck drivers always looking for a company that can give them a level of flexibility and treat them like a human being and like, not as a robot. And also trucking companies always looking for great qualified drivers, that they can depend on. So I said, well, what if I start a company where I hire the drivers and then groom the drivers and outsource them back to the trucking companies? And I launched that company December 15. The first month we did $37K in revenue. The following year I did $786K in revenue. And the second year I did $1.1 million in revenue, right? Now, me always having this idea of owning my own big fleet of truck, I took that proceed and started another company called JP&L Transportation. That one is an asset-based trucking company. I started with 3 trucks and grew that business to about 16 trucks in 6 months, and also $1.2 million in revenue in the first year as well. What's interesting was I was running both of those businesses simultaneously, like literally by myself. I didn't have a team. I couldn't delegate. I'm managing about 80 drivers. I'm the driver. I'm the supervisor. I'm the sales guy. I'm the customer rep. I'm the one doing everything, the dispatcher and as a driver. And as we all understand, eventually one thing is going to happen called burnout, right? Burnout started really affecting me personally, started affecting my business, my customers. And then life, I don't know, man. Life just has a way of just throwing curveball at me. And I don't call myself a victim of circumstances because I truly appreciate every curveball that I've experienced in life because they make me who I am today. In 2017, I had a son that was born with Down syndrome, right? And that really, really started affecting my business and started affecting me personally, emotionally, financially. At that time, I didn't care about no business. I didn't care about no trucks. I didn't care about no drivers. All I wanted was my son to be alive, knowing that, he had to go through multiple heart surgeries. And that really started really affecting my business. My son went into the first heart surgery in March 2018. And, that was very hard for me to take, man. Like emotionally, I was all over the place. I really couldn't deal with it. Like I said, now my business has really started really falling apart. And he came out his first surgery. Then he went in for the second surgery, which is in May. And that one was a little hard on me because it's like, okay, it was like, here come the first one. Now it's like, you're telling me there's a second one. So it's like, more fear started to really accumulate. And I really fell into this state of mind where I started feeling sorry for myself, which, it ain't usually me. It was more like, why me, God? Like, why do I have to have a son that I was born with this condition? I really just felt like I started adapting to this negative way of thinking. And before you know it, man, like another part of my story that I don't really talk much about is when my son was going through his second surgery, my mother lives in Orlando and she came in town to visit my son in a hospital. And I stopped at this restaurant in Brooklyn to pick up some food for my mother, right? And unfortunately, I was mugged and I had my skull cracked, right?
Yeah, bro.
Staples in my head. Like, I mean, horrible. Like, from left ear to right ear, you probably can still see the scars from here. It goes all around my head, right? 67 staples. And when I tell you, that put everything back to square one. Now, me and my son, we in a hospital fighting for our lives, right? He's in a hospital across the street. I'm in Kings County. He in another one called Downstate. They're both across the street from each other on the same main street. And I remember one thing that kept me going was seeing how hard my son was fighting, man. At 4 months old, this kid was really putting up a fight. Like, he didn't want to go out, right? So I kept seeing videos. Let me show you guys something. And I said, you know what? There's no way I'm going to give up. Hold on one second. I don't know if you guys can see this. This is my head.
Damn. Wow.
God damn. So basically, you got to describe to the listeners. So
what we're seeing right now is we're seeing Pierre's skull close to the top. Behind his hairline, there's like a staple. His hair separated.
It's literally ear to ear.
Ear to ear.
Like a what do you call it?
It looks like
a tiara almost. That ripped off his whole scalp.
It's like a
Yes.
headphone.
Pretty
Imagine like
much.
your headphone left an imprint.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Imagine your headphones left an imprint. That's
So
how
look,
crazy it
even
was scratched
right here,
over.
my forehead right here is not even my forehead. It's not real. It's a titanium plate that I have in my forehead right there.
Get out
So
of
that
here.
whole thing was just gone.
Wow.
So it's a titanium plate. So that's why you see that whole scar in my head.
Damn.
But yeah, man. So now what's interesting about it? Now, don't feel bad. Like I said, hey, listen, it is what it is.
Sheesh.
You know, to
God
get
bless.
dealt with it. It is very painful. But seeing my son fighting, and you know, I had also the same opportunity, man. I could have just give up in the hospital, or I really could have came out bitter and just said, hey, look, somebody has to pay for this. And I could have been pretty much another young black man that's out there perpetrating that same vicious cycle that sometimes us as a people that we do, and always being reactive. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to react in a negative way and say, you know what, I'm going to go out there angry and mad and hurt a bunch of other people. I started doing the math. I said, okay, if I go out there and do that, now I leave my 3 kids with no fathers. You understand? Now this is another mother I could put in pain, and myself, I'd be in jail. My family would be in pain. So I said, you know, the best way, you know, I can overcome all this pain, all this anger, is to go ahead and build exactly what it is that I've always, you know, been passionate about building, is pretty much creating, you know, a company and transportation that can provide efficiencies for the entire, you know, parties involved. So when I was in the hospital, man, I said, God, you know what? If this kid can fight this hard, I said, look, just get me at this hospital alive. I pray to God, like, you know, I will put a team together. I will add technology to build a sustainable and successful company, man. Just get me out of here alive. That's what I started praying. And by the grace of God, man, I came out the hospital 12 days later, and we started building Fleeting, man. And so far, you know, from launching our company in 2019, we already did almost $1 million in revenue. And this is once again coming from scratch and just saying, God, just give me the strength to launch this company, to see the amount of traction that we've done under a year and the amount of capital that we've raised. Still, people are saying, dude, how are you able to pull through? Like, you know, from coming out the hospital and you still being able to build this company to already $1 million in revenue, just, you know, under a year. Like, how are you able to do it? So once again, I think it's not me. I'm not super smart. I think this is my calling. I think, you know, the higher power is actually leading me into building what we're building now. I think I have a bigger purpose in life. And I just want to be able to, you know, keep swinging and keep fighting until I find what that purpose is. You know, we don't know what it will look like. You know what I'm saying? Does it fleet? Is it fleeting? We don't know. But I know whatever it is in life, you know, I believe for me, it's not going to be a walk in the park. I believe mine is always going to come with a lot of struggles, with a lot of obstacles. And the fact that mentally I'm already prepared to kind of deal with any challenges that come my way. So for me, I don't even look at them as challenges anymore. I just kind of look at them as part of the process that I just kind of have to go through in order to get my end goal.
Most definitely, man. Like, once you get that, like, what's a employee challenge? You know, like, it puts everything in perspective for you. That has to be one of the crazy stories you've heard on the podcast. So,
I mean, I think like you're just an example of just persistence, perseverance by any means. It's like you're never going to tap out. And I think, Pierre, like going through something like this, building your business, I think you can take it as far as you want to take it, because whatever hardships you come when you're building your business, it's so minuscule compared to what you've gone through personally and what your son has gone through, right? So you've seen the worst of the worst. So everything from now on is just looking up. It's just, you've seen the bottom. I can only go up from here.
Absolutely. No, that's the same thing, you know, I explained to the team as well. As like for me sometimes, although yes, sometimes, I have because I can breathe and I can walk, I say, hey, look, I'm entitled to complain and say, hey, you know, things is rough, things is bad. But the reality of it, when I think about everything that I've been through myself, I say, you know what, I don't have a such thing called a bad day. Like, you know, like from going from, you know, your family preparing your funeral arrangements to being here today saying, hey, look, you're building a company, you know, that's actually solving a major problem and that has the opportunity to be big. To me, it's like, there's no such thing as a bad day. Just like, you know, it's like, how do you compare anything bad? So I kind of remind the team of that every day. It's like, look, you know, at the end of the day, let's not take nothing for granted. Like, you understand, the last breath, the breath that we're taking right now, none of us know if this is going to be the last one. So always make sure we take a deep one and we take a good, you know, a strong one to understand why we're here, what's our purpose, and just kind of like, you know, it is our duty, man, to really figure it out. It's like, you know, the more we become a pushover, we'll never find out exactly what it is life had to offer, because we just kind of settle anything, anywhere life throw us. You know, it's just so easy to kind of accept, you know, those situations. But for me, I think is the fact that, you know, you have a community, I have my own children, right? You have the team, you have investors that's counting on me as well. So when you put all these things together, what I realize is it's very easy to give up on yourself when it's just you alone. But when you have a community, when you have a group of people that's counting on you, that's rooting for you, it's very hard for you to give up on those people. So in terms, it make it very hard for you to give up on yourself. So I think for me, the biggest lesson is surround yourself around people that want you to win, man. I think the fact that I have always had that, like, you know, my daughter was always a great person, you know, valuable, you know, person in my life that was always watching what I do, you know, as a dad or as a friend, as a business owner, like, you know, to always being able to push through. For me, I wanted to make sure that message was clear to her as well, that, you know, at the end of the day, like, you looking at me to deliver something, I'm accountable for that. So I don't want to give up, because if I give up now because things are hard, what kind of message would I be giving to her? So I think by having people around us that keep us accountable to our dreams, our goal, is the best way to stay on track, man, and not, you know, fall off and be on the side of the road.
Here, before we go on, can you put your phone on silent, because it's gonna like appear on the Don't want to keep hearing beeps.
Keep going on. Yes, I'm sorry.
I know you're a busy guy. You know, you're wanted by everybody.
No worries.
So let's talk about like building fleeting now, right? We want to talk about like the nitty gritty of the business. So, you know, talk about like the aspect of the business, how it works, you know, how many drivers you have on your platform, and, you know, just like the nuances of it, from your customers, how many customers are you getting per month, and all those certain things. Like, what's your business model first and foremost?
Yes, absolutely. So our business model, what we are a marketplace that help trucking companies find vetted CDL truck drivers 24/7 to operate their trucks, you know, around the clock. As we understand, as me in trucking, one of the biggest pain point in trucking is, you know, hiring drivers and retaining drivers. Turnover for truck drivers and trucking companies is about 103%. And trucking companies are spending $5,000 to $10,000 to hire one driver that will potentially quit in the next 30 to 90 days, right? So customers trucking companies are spending billions of dollars trying to recruit these talents that don't want to stay, and the turnover is very hard. And the reason why we have this turnover is, number one, drivers are overworked, right? Some drivers are doing 30, 45 days on the road, not seeing their family, not sleeping on, you know, on their bed. The food that they eat is garbage, right? So that creates another problem where, you know, no one wants to be a truck driver, and more drivers are needed to carry out, you know, the amount of loads that we have now. So that problem is truck drivers are jumping from companies to companies, right? So trucking companies are really feeling the pain by paying expensive insurance, have truck notes that they're paying, and they don't have drivers in their truck to constantly keep their trucks running. So what our platform does is solve twofold problem, right? Number one, it helped that trucking company minimize on that recruiting fee of always looking for a driver. By tapping into our platform, now they have access to, you know, as much drivers that we have on our platform. If they need 15, 20 drivers in 24 hours, they can have 15, 20 drivers in 24 hours, where they don't have to go and spend that $5,000, $10,000 to recruit one driver, right? So we make that a lot easier for that trucking company to find us. Also, for the truck driver, by creating that centralized pool of drivers and customers, we allow now that driver to create his own schedule to find a time that works best for him. So as opposed to him working 40, 50 days out, right? Now that driver can say, hey, look, you know what? I want to work for the next 2 weeks and then be back home and stay home for the next 2 weeks. So that driver have a little bit more control of his own schedule. So by being able to create that centralized pool of drivers and deploy that type of labor, I think we minimize the amount of load work that they're putting on each driver and create more flexibility for the trucking companies. So, I mean, our business is very simple. Like I said, trucking companies need drivers to move their freight, and truck drivers looking for a company that can give flexibility. So our platform solves exactly that. It gives the trucking companies access to these drivers to operate their trucks 24/7.
Amazing. So now I come in as a courier, right? Looking to hire a driver. Do I come in to sign up and let's boss my uncle, I'm going? Or is it like I have to sign up and pay a fee, like a monthly fee? Or is it just like a commission off the top? How does it work?
Yes. So pretty much, so at first, when we had first started, we had to kind of like did a more like a staffing agency model when we started, where we was charging the customer a certain amount of fee, like for example, about $40, $45 per hour. And we was paying the drivers $25 per hour. And we was keeping about a 22 to 28% margin on every transaction. But what we realized is that, you know, that model was very evasive on some companies, because it felt like we was dictating what it is that they're paid to their drivers. However, it does work for much more like a larger carrier, like, a national company. Let's just say, the U.S. Food, the Cisco's, the multi-billion-dollar companies, it worked for them. Mm-hmm. But the mid-sized companies, it didn't really work well. And what we see work well was just a booking fee every time they book a driver. So it wasn't much more like, hey, look, we was telling them exactly what they pay the drivers. We was telling the companies, hey, you can pay your a fleeting driver whatever it is you usually pay your existing drivers. We just now just going to charge you a booking fee every time you request a driver from us.
Interesting.
So
sorry to cut you off on.
No.
In the pitch, one thing you stated was you have like a high MRR. What is the MRR and why is it important?
So MRR is what they would call is like monthly recurring revenue. Yeah. Right. So why is MRR is important is pretty much if we look at it, pretty much as the entire capital landscape on how they invest in business and what it is that they use to make their decision on investing on companies. Is that MRR usually tell them a very compelling story to tell them exactly how scalable that business is and how fast that business is growing. So how you growing month over month, tell the investor, gives that a clear indication like, okay, well, this business here has a potential to scale at a very big company, or that could potentially be a multi-billion-dollar company. So that's why the MRR is very important, because they gauge that to see what kind of company you can become.
Interesting. Go ahead.
So, Pierre, I had some experience building a marketplace a couple of years back. It was a sneaker reselling marketplace. So we had, buyers and sellers, but the thing is, it's like they kind of had synergy between each other, where the seller could be the buyer and the seller
buyer could be the seller.
Exactly, right?
Yes.
One of the things is we ran into actually having a lot of merchandise on the website. So for example, when you think about sneakers, you have all the brands and you have a certain style. Let's say if it's an Air Jordan 1, you need it in size 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and so forth and so forth. So when a buyer comes, they have options and they have it for them. One of the things is like, we realized that there's a lot of people in different parts of the country. It was like meet up and then trade the shoes. So you can be selling your shoes, but there's no one in your area to buy them. For your trucking business, you have a lot of merchants, we'll call them, your companies. Let's say if they're in Arkansas and they need a trucker to come to Arkansas, but there's no one in that area who can meet up with them. How do drivers meet up with the businesses that are looking to hire them?
Yeah, man, great question, right? So this is why building a marketplace, you have to be very strategic on how you build that, because, having that balance is very important. So for us, I think is also understand is what is key markets that we need to be in, right? Now, as Arkansas, is that a market where we getting a lot of, downloads? Do we have a lot of drivers in that area? Now, if the data is showing us that, yes, we have drivers downloading in that area, then it makes sense for us to go and get customers in that area. But we don't do that. So what we do, we let the data drive. What is the next area that we target? So wherever we see the most downloads from drivers and see more driver activities, that's where we kind of create a more like a focus point and say, hey, look, how do we acquire 5, 10 customers into that region? Because we have drivers in that region. So the reality is kind of right now, we control that growth, because we understand exactly what is the next market that we go into, based on understanding the traction in trucking or what state that is moving the most freight. So we kind of pay attention to these things and let them tell us how we go into the next market. But to answer that question, yeah, it is very tough in the marketplace to have a customer out of Wisconsin to reach out and say, hey, look, we need a driver. It's just going to be very unfortunate. We have to tell that customer, like, we're not currently operating in your region. We don't have no presence there.
Yeah, it must hurt to tell them no, because that is like revenue in your company that you're denying, right? It must hurt all the time.
But you see, but the thing for us is that we never tell a customer that. We never tell a customer, no, we don't operate in your region. So, I mean, we'll probably quickly likely tell a driver we don't operate in their region at the moment, then tell a customer that, and that is for several reasons, right? Because that customer, as we understand, they may have the need right now. You might not be able to fulfill that need right now, but they may have that need again 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, a month from now. So how do you kind of hold that customer and kind of keep them on the hook and build a relationship and keep that customer engaged and give you time to go ahead and build a driver community in that market? So for me, that's what I find I learned that work very smart as well. When customers do reach out in the region that I don't have no drivers, I'm making my business to lock on that customer and making my business to grow a driver pool in that region, just so I won't say no to that customer.
Nice, nice. One of the things about marketplaces is they stress about building a community, and marketplaces flourish because they're born out of communities, right? You can think of, like, for example, sneakers as a passionate people behind that. Truckers, it's a lifestyle, right? Like if you are a trucker, you definitely connect with another trucker. For your marketing and getting the initial first, let's say, batch of truckers, are there certain communities that you tapped into to really leverage that to get them on your platform?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that we see that work is truck drivers don't trust trucking companies. They don't trust shippers. They don't trust brokers. Like you said, truck drivers really trust another trucker, right? So we utilize that to our advantage, where we incentivize our drivers to recruit other drivers, right? So if you bring another driver, we pay you $250 if that driver do the first load with us. So that way is another way that we get in drivers. And we also go exactly where the drivers hang out, man. We go to the truck stops. We go where the drivers are lounging, where the drivers are eating, and actually speak with them. And, we also do some marketing work that we're doing right now, where we go to these places and speak to these drivers and interview these drivers and allow them to, tell the world about the sacrifice that they're making every day. And what we see is drivers really gravitate to that, the fact that they feel like now their voices are being heard. And that really help us, the driver acquisition channel, and make it a lot easier for us to get drivers without running any paid ads.
Nice.
Yeah, about to say, I noticed that you guys didn't have the pics on your website. So I'm like, all right, so they're not running paid ads. They must have an interesting acquisition process. What's the acquisition process for your couriers that you find?
So for the carriers, it's pretty much right now. So as we understand, COVID-19 has impacted every major business, across the country.
Of course.
And as we understand, even the supply chain, the impact that it had on supply chain on a global scale. But what we understand on the domestic end, what we did for us was, when we see COVID really starting to take that much of a hold in the industry, we kind of changed our approach to customers and started going after specific customers that are moving essential goods like food, beverages, medical supplies, and waste. So for us, by being able to go to these companies, we were able to kind of like really position ourselves as a company that's able to help them ramp up on drivers to move any goods that they need to move across the country, especially through the pandemic, because most drivers probably were staying home. And most of these companies, they probably see a uptick on their traditional volume of freight that they have, and they need more drivers. So we kind of use that to go after these companies. So our carrier acquisition process for these companies been fairly, I would say, not the most easiest, but I would say a much more comfortable process, because now we providing the trucking companies a pool of drivers that they can tap into, and eliminate the entire onboarding process to get their product delivered, especially through this crisis. So I think this crisis kind of helped us really solidify truly market fit of who we are as a company and how we can deploy drivers real fast to a company.
Do you have to do anything like extra because of COVID-19 in terms of like providing like gloves to your drivers and PPE for your drivers as well? Like, how do you deal with navigate that lane?
Yes, absolutely. So those are some questions that the drivers were asked as well. So what we did was, once COVID started really taking effect, so we was sending about $50 every week for all of our drivers. As we know, gloves and PPE was running scarce everywhere. Even ourselves couldn't get our hands on them. But as the drivers were the one on the road, they had at least accessibilities where they can stop at certain Walmart and certain stores. What we was doing was giving the drivers at least $50 every week to keep buying cleaning supply, to keep their trucks clean and keep themselves clean as they continue driving through the crisis. Yes.
Okay, cool. Amazing, man. Oh, one thing I also noticed in your pitch was you using LTV. Could you, for our listeners that don't know, what's LTV and why is it important for your business?
LTV, yes, absolutely. LTV is very important. LTV is your is your lifetime customer value, right? Pretty much is, you want to understand, like, once you have a customer, during that lifetime of that person being a paid customer, what is the potential earning, right? You could make with that customer, and what does that lifetime look like, right? Is that lifetime could be what? Does the customer stay on for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 18 months, however long that customer stay? They want to know pretty much what is the total revenue that you get from that customer. So for example, and I'm going to give you the most easiest example. Let's just say you download an app, right? And the app is costing you, $5 per month, right? And you kept the app on your phone for about 6 months. So that pretty much shows you the LTV on a customer like this, on an app like that, is about $30, because you probably keep the app and use it for 6 months, and you pay the $5. And after that, you probably find out, I don't really like this service. I don't like this app, and you want to cancel it. So there you go. So that 6 months, you say, hey, look, that's the lifetime value of any customer that's coming on. You know, typically they'll last. So you know that, hey, look, at least I know they're coming on to last for 6 months, but this is how much money I get to make out of them. But for us, the good thing is like, you know, for all of our customers, you know, the churn on them is pretty much negative 2% right now. We really doing a great job by really maintaining our customers and doing a good job by really maintaining the drivers as well on the churn on the drivers. Customers so far, the customers that we started last year are some of the same customers that we've had for till now. So our customer LTV is pretty long for our business model. We really appreciate that.
Here, with the marketplace, one of the main things that you notice with them is people go outside of the platform to really ignore the transaction fees, right? Yep. Have you had any problems with people? Let's say I have you as my company, and then you paid me, and then I come to you next time, like, you know what, Pierre, like, I already know you need me for this job. Let's not go through fleeting because they're going to take a cut. Yep. I want to get the full amount of the money. How do you navigate that process, and how do you protect yourself to not have one of those type of incidents happening?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So the good thing for us is, you know, the onboarding process of when we say, hey, look, from when we identify a potential driver to doing the onboarding process of that driver, there's so many things that goes into that, right? That means, you know, we have to make sure the driver is properly vetted. We have to make sure that we check the driver MVR, make sure that his driving record is good. He doesn't have no DUI, nothing crazy. Mm-hmm. We also have to make sure that that driver, prior to him coming onto the platform, that driver also does a pre-employment drug test, right? So now when you yourself, you want to go behind my back and kind of take that driver at your own risk, you can. But also remember, if anything happened now, you know, now this is your risk, right? You're taking that risk on yourself as to where now you're going behind my back and hiring a driver that doesn't qualify. How can I put it? Based on Department of Transportation regulation, if whenever you hire that driver, he's under, and we aware of that driver is using that service, then you and your company is covered under what we're doing. But if you're going behind our back and you dispatching that driver and anything happened, that's on your, you know, that's on your own responsibility as well. Mm-hmm. And also another thing too, although that can happen, which is not something that we see, but we did have situation where a customer would say, hey, those, you know, 4 or 5 drivers, I like them. I like to hire these drivers on full time and bring them into my company. Mm-hmm. The only thing with that is, right, the drivers, what they don't want to miss and what the customers don't want to miss by us giving them access to a pool of drivers is not just saying, hey, look, let me just go ahead and just get this one driver behind their back, you know, and just use him and hire him. It's also being able to provide that customer with volume and also being able to provide that truck driver with multiple companies that they can work for. So it's very hard for them to just say, hey, you know what, I'd rather just leave Fleeting alone and come work for you directly, because the reason why they're with Fleeting is because they want to work directly with a trucking company for a one-on-one relationship from the get-go, right? From the first place, because they know once they become an employee to that trucking company, they have to work for that company 6 days a week. There you go. Yeah. They're pretty much you're an employee to that. So now the drivers is not going to give that back up again to what? To become a full-time employee to your organization just because you might be offering them what? $5 more on the hourly rate for the day, or maybe extra $50 on the load for the day. So these things too, drivers take into consideration. So when a customer did do that and they reach out and say, hey, look, we got 4 drivers that we want to acquire because we think there's some great drivers, what we see is all 4 drivers decline. And the reason why the drivers decline, they say, well, if I go over there, I become a full-time driver. If I call out 1 or 2 days because I had some family emergency, now I run the risk of getting written up or maybe possibly terminated, right? Mm-hmm. With Fleeting, I could work 3 months straight or take 2 weeks off and don't have to explain to anyone why I took 2 weeks off and then come right back to work. So those drivers appreciate the fact that they have that flexibility component with us. This is why they're not going beyond our back and just saying, hey, look, I'll just work for that company directly, because if that was the case, they wouldn't be part of Fleeting.
It's like an Uber, right? It's like Uber Eats. It's like turn it on and off whenever you want to and still maintain that autonomy, like for your life.
Absolutely. Correct.
Yeah.
Amazing. I was wondering, so do they become contractors under you? Is that like what the technical term would be, type of thing?
Yes. So our drivers are hired as independent contractors. They don't have to own the truck, right? So it's just pretty much all they need to have is their clean CDL, clean credential, and we connect them with companies that already have those assets that are being underutilized. So it's just kind of already connect them with underutilized assets.
Got you. Okay. One thing like comes to mind when I think about this is like insurance. Like it must be like hectic as hell to try and have coverage for all of that, right? How does
Yes.
that really work?
So coverage is very another big headache in trucking as well. So
Oof.
for us, is what we understand is for different trucking companies, their insurance criteria might ask them for different driver criteria. So for example, you can have company like UPS, their insurance provider might just say, hey, look, you can't only hire drivers that only have 5 years experience, no more than 2 accidents in the last 2 years, or no more than 1 moving violation. And then you can have another company, let's just say company, FedEx, just, for example, can say, hey, look, hey, you can hire drivers at least with a minimum of 1 year experience and no more than 3 years, of accident or moving violation. So when you take that into consideration, you have so many different drivers out there with so many different records, right? For us is being able to create a center where we collect all that data on a driver. Once the driver come in, when we run in the MVR, we understand everything about that driver, right? How long he been driving, how many accidents, how many moving violations. So also when a trucking company come on and they sign on and they become a customer and they want drivers, we also, their input, what type of drivers they want based on their insurance criteria, right? So once they input that information, our algorithm only match them with only drivers that fit their insurance criteria. So it's not like they're just taking any drivers. So if the insurance saying, hey, look, they can only hire drivers with 3 years of experience and no more than 1 moving violation, the minute that customer sign on, our algorithm find a driver that fit that exact criteria for their insurance. So that's one of the good ways that we minimize claim for our customers by providing them drivers that truly match their exact insurance needs.
Interesting. All right. So one thing you brought up was algorithms, right? Now,
Autonomous?
pardon me?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't hear that. I'm sorry. What did you say?
One thing you just mentioned was algorithms.
Yes.
And one thing that I think, well, it could be like a hurdle is going from a truck driver to someone that's like a tech, company owner. Like, was there any like friction there? Like, it sounds like that's like a big hurdle to like, are you coding now? Do you have to hire a team? Do you have to develop an app? Like, walk us through that, because that feels like a whole hurdle that,
Yeah.
Absolutely, definitely. No, and yeah, let's not scare the audience, man. You do not have to learn coding, man, to be a CEO of a tech company. You don't have to be, a chief technical officer. Just like when I was running my own businesses, I didn't have to be a business lawyer or accountant. Like, in a sense, to run my business, what I did, I hired the people with the right talent, or to kind of help us achieve that goal. So it's the same approach when it came to building the tech company. I had a lot of investors that saying the same thing. It was like, well, Pierre, how can someone like you talk about, you want to be a leader of a software company? But once they understood the knowledge that I have in trucking and what I've already created in trucking, is that, okay, well, you have a domain expertise in the space. You understand trucking in and out. Now, all you need pretty much is a person that understand trucking as well, but I also understand technology, that understand product, so they can take what's out of your head and translate that into product. And for me, I think was early on being very transparent of the fact that, I had zero experience in technology. Like I said, my whole life been in trucking. So you can tell I'm the least tech savvy person you could think of, right? But it was just being able to be transparent as well about that and just saying, hey, look, this is what I know and this is what I don't know. I could run a trucking company from, from 0 to 20, $30 million overnight with my eyes closed, right? But if I have someone that's a chief technical officer that understand product, that understand what it takes to scale a product, then I can say, hey, look, then we could build a company from 3 million to maybe $3 billion in the next 10 years based on how that person have an understanding on how they approach from building products. So I made that my homework to really, really build a team, and also learning from my previous companies as well, right? When I didn't have a team, when everything fell apart, that burn remind me again not to ever do anything by myself. So learning that, it was like, okay, how do I surround myself around people that can bring true value into this company? So one of the greatest lessons that I've learned in building a tech company is that, at the end of the day, you don't have to know everything, man. You don't have to be a COO. You don't have to be a CTO. Like I said, if you have a good product, you think people believe in it, you could change a lot of people's lives. You don't necessarily need technology first to actually go to market. Just go ahead, be scrappy. Go with what you have. Go with a napkin with a pen. Just go to market. Just do something. You know what I'm saying? And everything else will figure itself out. And that's what we started doing. A lot of my work early on was on a spreadsheet, you understand, in Excel, and just, calling multiple drivers and calling multiple, customers. So as the more and more I did the process manually, the more I understood it. And the more it was a lot more easier to translate to our CTO to build that into, technology. How do you translate that? Because he was just there for the entire process of seeing how the manual things work. And he was able to see everything to turn it into products. So having a team is very important. So once again, I'm not that smart. I'm not that savvy to be saying, hey, look, we're doing X, Y, and Z in numbers. I think it's the fact that I have a great team, a great supporter around us that truly understand what it is that we're building and that understand exactly how we go about it.
Most definitely. I feel like that could be like an anxiety-inducing, not kind of an anxiety-inducing factor, because that person is a key element of the business, So like, what advice could you give to hiring that key person? Because a lot of us don't have any tech experience. We need that CTO in our lives to handle the tech aspect, right? So how did you go about hiring him and vetting someone that is going to be an integral part of the business?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I think I got lucky, man. My CTO is, I think he's what you would call in the Valley is one of those high caliber guys. Like, he was the former CTO of a company called AirWatch that got acquired for over $1.5 billion. So, This guy pretty much knows how to build product and knows how to build scalable product. But for me, I think I do want to say maybe I was lucky and maybe it was fate. It was, at the time, because him and another gentleman was really trying to build the same thing that we was trying to build. And unfortunately, how we all got ended up being together and him being my CTO was a very, interesting story how everything ended up being unfolded. But having that CTO, man, is key. I think the ways that founders can really look for that person is also sometimes, the person that your closest friend might become that CTO, right? But sometimes all they need is a shot. What is a CTO? A CTO is just pretty much just chief technical officer that's actually leading your product. Some people have different meaning on what a CTO is supposed to do at a startup at different stages, right? Most people say, yeah, the CTO at a C level, they will want that CTO to be coding every day, building product. And then you have other CTOs, yes, they might be great at building, at coding, but once you put them into the scalability of things, they can even manage a team, right? So it's like, damn, does that CTO has a personality? Does that CTO has what it takes to actually manage a group of 200 engineers? So it's very, you have to understand when we're talking about CTO for me, I had to learn early on that CTO is just not the person that knows how to code, but that person that also knows how to manage a bunch of engineers that know how to code as well, right? So for us, I think is number one, we have to be very open with ourselves and also be very transparent with the people that we're talking to. Because remember, man, like you're crazy enough to have this idea and other people are more crazy to even believe you to join you on that journey. So you just have to make it appealing enough to just say, hey, look, why should that person come and join this product and join this journey to say, I'm going to do it with you? What does the upside look like? What is the value? How does this feel, inside when that person think about the product that you're building? And I think if we just can spend more time in truly cultivating that relationship on the people and what we're looking for, not just a tech title like a CTO, but just look into the person that you want your true partner to be is just really look into that person and see, hey, look, does this person has the ability to grow with me as a partner, right? Does this person has the ability to withstand good and bad time? Does this person have the ability to understand what is it going to take to build this product? And I think the more we start looking at that, we'll start looking at the valuable side of the human parts, but not just, the coding part of what they bring to the table, because coding is good that they bring to the table, but their way of thinking is much more important to how they code, because that's what's going to help you scale your organization.
Okay. What are some challenges that you faced leading a team?
Oh, man, challenges. I think challenges of leading myself every day, right? At the end of the day, it's like, how do we put it? It's like, it's always easy to make the right decision when 1,000 people's watching you, right? But when there's no one else watching you, how do you keep yourself accountable and do what you're supposed to do at the time you're supposed to do it, right? So for me, I think recognizing that I am the worst employer that I've ever worked for, and I probably ever will be the worst employer that I ever worked for.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that? Sorry to cut you off, but yeah, why do you say that?
Yeah, being an entrepreneur, working for yourself is always going to be the worst employer you can have, because like I said, technically you don't have no days off. You can tell you can tell yourself you're off today, right? Because at the end of the day, you got to build it, right? Everyone could just say, I had enough today. I'm going home. I'm calling it today, but it's still your baby, right? You're still thinking about it at night, 2 a.m. That thing is still in your head. So it's like, so you're the worst employer you could have, because technically you working 365, 24/7. You're never off. You may think you're off. Even on your day off, you're thinking about your business and you're not off.
That's a fact.
So for me, I think recognizing that, like, I'm one of the worst employees to have, because I would rather put more time into my business than saying, hey, look, let me go to a bar and have a drink, right? I'd rather say, hey, look, you know what, let me call one more customer as opposed to say, hey, look, man, let's go swimming, let's do X, Y, and Z. So like having that as being the owner of your company sometimes is very hard to kind of break apart to say, okay, well, when do I have that leisure time? And when do I constantly think about my business and about my organization and how can I add values to it, right? So that is always, you know, in a way. And I think, you know, building the team, what I've realized is, guys, like, there's a lot of things that we just don't know, right? As we build up companies, even, you know, other companies, other people that become big chiefs, you know, that become big, different titles and companies. At some point in time, you know, they didn't know themselves, right? They had to kind of take the leap of faith. They had to kind of believe in the mission, in the product, and they eventually become the moguls that we know. We look at who they are today. So the way I look at it is the same way I look at it with my team, right? I look at my team as, you know, where the strength is at, where the weakness is at, as much as I want my team to see my strength and see my weakness. And as much as we all can understand as an organization where the strength is at and where the weakness is at, I think we can always be in a position to tap in into any part of our organization to say, hey, look, we need to improve on this, or we need to dumb down in this. So being able to be very transparent with my team and kind of treat the organization, not just say, hey, look, I'm the person that's leading it with an iron fist or with a rod. It's much more like leading with action with the team as well. It's just saying, hey, look, how do I show the team that I'm in this? Like, right? Like my life is in this, like regardless to no matter what times of the night. I want the team to call me and know that I'm dedicated for this. So the more I show the team I'm dedicated and my life is all about this mission, the more that I see the team make the same sacrifice themselves to show me that, hey, look, they themselves is also dedicated to that mission. So I think that makes my leadership, being able to build an organization a lot more easier. I think being transparent is very important, is key.
Most definitely. All right, so I want to take a little bit of a pivot, because one thing you've done really successfully as well is raise money. You know, you've won multiple pitch contests, and you have investors on the team as well. So, like, what are some of the key things that people should know when it comes to having a great pitch?
Oh, yeah, man. Great pitch is very important. So, I mean, although, yes, I did win a lot of pitch competition now, but, you know, I was really losing a lot. I used to really lose a lot of pitch competition. And I used to go into the ring and really get my butt chewed, man. When I'm telling you, once again, you coming from trucking, right?
Yeah.
Don't know nothing about the tech venture space. Don't know nothing about building technology. Don't know certain things about the lingo. So just coming from that world and had to adapt to raising capital and just kind of being put on a spot and, you know, being asked thousands of questions and really not knowing how to answer them. I think those kind of give me the early ability to truly understand what is the pitch, right? How do you deliver the best pitch? How do you de-risk your business to that investor? Because that's all it is, right? At the end of the day, at that stage as a seed company, when the investor's investing in you, there's really nothing there, right? That investor's making a bet on, hey, potentially there could be something there. But you as a founder, it was much more like, how do you de-risk your business to make that investor more comfortable in investing in you as opposed to investing in the other party? So the more I was going to pitch competition, the more I got familiar with the questions that they was asking. I would go back and do my homework on those questions and make sure I understand the answers and understand why they ask those questions as well. Because every question from an investor, if you pay attention, always leads to another question, right? So it's like the way you answer that question leads to another question. So for me is truly understand what the investor is thinking when they're listening to the pitch. What is it that the investor is looking for, right, to get that ha-ha moment? So once I started really understanding the importance of that, I really started practicing on it, really started hitting on certain key metric on my pitch early, and really being able to also become a little bit more comfortable speaking about myself as who I was, you know, being a driver and being able to go through my journey. At first, I was, you know, kind of ashamed of my story of building a company and kind of failed for being mugged. But what I realized is that's like a badge of honor. Like, they appreciate the fact that I was like, hey, look, I built companies to $1 million in revenues before. I just decided not to stop. And this is why I'm doing this now. And every investor always come back, why didn't you tell me that first? Like, you know, like, that's what we want to hear. We want to invest into a founder, you understand, that has the ability to take a few blows and keep, you know, and get up and keep pushing. That's what they look for. So that really started helping the pitch. And the fact that, like I said, I knew the business, I knew the pain point. Although I was getting a lot of no's from investors early on, but I kept my focus on speaking with drivers and speaking with customers and keep growing our revenue. So although I was getting no's, my business was still growing revenue and still making money and still having good traction. So that kind of helped a lot with our pitches.
What are some of the things that they usually look for? Like, I know one thing you mentioned was because of the MRR and the LTV like you mentioned earlier. Also, one thing I noticed that it was slick that you really did was have emotion.
Yes.
In the pitch. You know what I'm saying? Talk about that.
Yes, absolutely, man. Definitely. You got to bring the emotional part into your pitch, right? Because the investors want to know, like, yeah, are you building a hobby here? Is it just something that, you just want to do because you and your friends were born? Or this is something that you're truly passionate about? So I think adding that emotional part into the reason why you're building the business, into the reason why you think you're the best person to build this business, give that investor that confidence also. Because once again, like, having a great business is kind of like, a quarter of the way of getting venture capital. It's not all the answers. You can have all the best business ideas in the world, all the great minds, if you don't have the execution part, if you don't have the ability to build a team to execute on that business, it doesn't mean anything, right? So the investors is not only looking just because the business sounds good. They want to know the person leading that company, does that person has what it takes to execute? Does that person has it take to motivate enough people to build a team around that? So yes, investors are looking for the emotional connection. They're looking to see, do you have the emotional intelligence to make the right decision on the company of hiring the right people to build what it is that you want to build?
Of raising money, what would you say? You've raised money from investors and also winning competitions. What percentage would you say is from raising from like individual investors to winning competitions?
Out of the funds that we've raised?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would say 20% was just from pitch competition and 80% was just kind of from angels and traditional investors.
Okay.
Most recently, we just had Andrea Henry, business lawyer, on the pod, and she was talking about the different types of shares that are allocated when it comes to investments, right? So something that she was talking about is like common shares and transferable shares. So like, which ones do you prefer when it comes to taking an investment, for what and why?
Well, I mean, everybody pretty much as a founder, you appreciate, to have the common shares. That's one of the most valuable one. And then you have the options, right? And this is what shares that you can have for the employees. This common is just pretty much is just saying those shares are the shares that, pretty much kind of like, what's the best way I can explain the difference between the common shares as far as like where the audience can have a better understanding is like, the common shares.
Like a straight percentage, like out of 100%, it's 10% type shit.
No, it don't matter. Like pretty much, if you're getting out of the common shares, just saying that if in a case of liquidity event where the company sold, that investor will be paid first before you get paid yourself.
Yeah.
So this is what pretty much that language is. It's just like that investor, their shares, they have that common share. They want to understand when you sell that company or you go IPO, they want to get the first one to be paid. And a lot of them they want to control as well is, at what amount you sell a company as well. You understand? So it's like if it doesn't hit a trigger where they're happy with, some investors can also kind of like, kill the sell of a company as well. So this is the thing too, man. It's like, yes, venture capital is good, but also it comes with its own little nuisance as well that a lot of people kind of like, don't want to deal with. But I think for me is the way I understand venture capital, I think it's a great tool. I think VCs bring a lot of values to the table. Most of them do. But I think us as a founder, we just have to know how do we use venture capital, right? To fund our next venture. Like, you understand? We also have to look into what it is that we're building and have to ask ourselves, is this a venture fund business? Do I really want to deal with investors? Do I really want to give equity? Do I really want to dilute my business this early to have investors come in? So there's so many different methods of ways you can fund a company without traditionally going, towards the investors route. And I suggest every founder is to really kind of like really pay attention and understand the difference and, why it doesn't make sense sometimes to take VC money, why it doesn't make sense, because, it's different for different folks. So what might work for me may not work for the other party. I mean, what not work for them may not work for me. So I think it's very important that every founder understand that. Yeah,
you've actually been in a unique role where you've actually bootstrapped the company, because the first one you didn't get any investment, right?
No, not at all.
So, but now this time you actually have. So like, how did they compare for you?
So, I mean, the comparison for me, what I've realized is also too, is like the very first one, yes, I had majority ownership. I owned it, but I didn't have a community around me, right? I was growing, but I was only growing so fast at a rate where it's like, okay, it probably would have going to take me maybe 20 years to be a $50 or $100 million company, right? So with the VC money, what I definitely can say is that what it does is it gives you the ability to kind of grow fast,
Scale
around it, scale a lot quicker, like in a stable market a lot faster, being able to make a name for yourself a lot quicker, and also being able to have that support around a bunch of people, like I said, that believe in what you're doing, that's willing to make introduction, that's willing to provide that support of saying, hey, look, what it is that you have an issue with, is it sales, is it, employee, is it team? I think we have a lot of investors that really kind of like, stand next to us, that's really providing a lot of value. So I think having that community, it really, to me, it's a blessing, man, not only to get money from investors, but to have investors that's rolling up their sleeves to say, hey, look, how can we help and push this thing forward is everything.
And how long does that usually take? Sorry, Owen.
Yeah, I was just going to ask him, like, I mean, what rounds did you get to investing? Did you get to like the B round, A round? How far did you go with your investing?
Oh, so right about now, so we're still in the seed round, right?
Seed round?
Seed round, absolutely. So we only did a seed round total. We did about 1.2 million total raise. But at the end of the day, we thinking of doing a Series A. We don't know what that look like yet. We saying, hey, look, this could be towards the end of the year, or it could be early next year. So we just kind of really looking at market trend and see what's happening with COVID-19. Although we are constantly growing. Like I said, last year, the whole 2019, we did only $577K in revenue. And for this first quarter of 2020, we already did $430,000 in revenue. So I think pretty much we can close to 2020, maybe 3 to 5 million in GMV, and that would determine exactly what do we do. Do we do a Series A or maybe a potential larger seed round towards the end of the year? But I think we're really pushing for Series A towards early next year.
You said GMV. What's that?
It's a gross merchandising volume, right?
Yes.
It's like a marketplace term.
Gosh, you see, I gotta know my things, man. I'm asking everything. I'm trying to learn.
That's what we're here, man. Because we built I built a marketplace. Pierre's building a marketplace. So these are like terms like I learned from.
Absolutely,
yeah, man. Those are the days.
You said it was the gross
merchandise volume, right?
Gross merchandise volume. Is that like the amount of sales you make, or the volume of merchandise you move over like a time period, like a year, I'm guessing? Fiscal year?
So it's like, it's like the total basket. If you look at your marketplace, what's the total value of stock you have in your marketplace? So let's say Sneaker Deck, let's say we have 100, let's say 1,000 sneakers, high value sneakers. We'll say like the GMV is worth, let's say 5 million or something like that in our marketplace. And I would say, okay, on average, we can take a percentage of that. So we can say, okay, we can predict we'll do this in revenue because if we have this many transactions a week over 12 months, we can predict this, and that. So it's an easy way just to look at how healthy your marketplace is, because you have to factor in for churn as well too. If someone leaves your marketplace and etc. And then you actually get like a key number of like where your business is at from a quarter to quarter basis.
Okay, that was a big gem.
Yeah,
big gem.
Definitely, he definitely knows about the marketplace lingo. He knows it to a T. You can tell he built it before.
That's a fact.
Yeah, man.
That's a fact.
So we want to get to like some fun, like little stuff you've done. You know, you Chamilionaire, Dame Dash, all these guys.
No, not Dame Dash. Damon, Matt. What's his name? What's his name from Shark Tank? Not Damon Dash.
Damon Dash.
No. His name is not Daymond Dash.
Daymond John, bro.
Daymond John, yes. Jesus Christ. You were calling Dame Dash, Dame John. Oh, man. That's what we were doing? Oh, man. Yo, we just got our black card removed, bro.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Daymond Dash, no, I don't think Daymond Dash is investing in venture capital. I don't think.
I mean, he's doing decent. He has his own little studio that he's doing.
Dame Dash.
It was Daymond John.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jesus Christ. Oh my God. All right. So good thing we cleared that up. It's Daymond John, not Dame Dash.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Dope. So do you actually get to meet Daymond John and
No, actually he was one of the judges as well. So I didn't get to see, I didn't get to meet anyone one of them. Everything was just pretty much done online.
Okay, cool. And how was the pitch?
I mean, the pitch was great, man. I believe, I don't remember. I believe it was about over 300 teams, and then they narrowed it down to like, the top 10, and came the winner, man. I think also what it was, I think it was also my traction too at the time. We had some great traction. We had some great momentum. That was last year, December. Like I said, so we kept meeting all the milestones that we said we were going to do while we were in the pitch competition, and everything was just falling in place. So it was only right, man. So it was a great competition. As a matter of fact, we was able to really launch on Republic as well, based on that pitch competition. And our campaign is still live on Republic. And right about now, I think we up to 135,000 that we've raised from regular investors as well and regular individuals.
Nice. And what do they get for investing? Is it just like common shares, or is it options?
Yeah, so pretty much. So Republic, what it is like a crowdfunding platform.
I'm unfamiliar with Republic. So how does that work?
Yeah. Huh?
I'm unfamiliar with Republic. So it's a crowd sharing platform. I'm guessing you invest and you get some kind of kickback, something like that.
Yeah, you invest and you pretty much get to own ownership of the company now. The only difference is like now they allow you to buy shares at that stage without being an accredited investor, right? Just like when we selling security, when we pitching investors and we raising money from them, every time an investor invests, we sell that investor securities of the company. We sell out investor shares, right? Those investors, they're what you call accredited investors or angels because they're high net worth individuals. Individuals like sometimes like people that look like us, they don't fall under the accredited investor bracket. So it's very hard for them to have the opportunity to invest in early emerging tech companies. So what crowdfunding does, like Republic or Seed Invest or Start Engine, all these companies, they'll allow you to kind of create a crowdfunding vehicle and allow regular individuals to come and invest $500, $1,000, $10,000 in ownership of that company under that crowdfunding company's kind of like line item. It's not like you're gonna be under my cap table, but you will be under Republic. Republic will be under my cap table, but you will be a shareholder as well that have a certain amount of shares in that company through the Republic platform. So they just make it a lot easier for regular individuals to have the opportunity to invest in early emerging companies as well.
Okay, that's dope.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to sorry to cut you out. Let's get to some like fun questions, like Owen said, man. So you're getting a check, like a big check early, like you said, you're in college and you dropped out. What were some of the dumb things you purchased, man, when you were like in your early 20s, getting $90K a year? I know you did some dumb shit with that.
Because you're a young guy pulling that type of dough,
you know
man.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. I was there, man. I was
for real.
Yeah, young, man. To be honest with you guys, yes, I did make a lot of stupid mistakes. With money, man. I'm young. Okay. Like I said, it was always for me. It was one thing is cars, right? I'm a big sucker for cars. Right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm a sucker for cars, man. I mean, right now I don't have a car right now, but I could tell you pretty much. Crazy thing that I spent money on probably was cars, man.
What was the car?
I mean, right now I don't have no more cars right now. So I mean, I used to have a BMW. I used to drive a S6 Audi.
Okay.
Had a 2018 Cadillac Escalade. Like I really do. Cars was the things, and also too jewelries, and that was another reason why I got mugged too. I was driving an S6 Audi. I had a Rolex on, Cuban link chain. So I was just kind of like fresh.
Yeah,
I was like, hey, I didn't look like the average Joe. It would look like, oh, who this guy? He looked like a rapper. So
got you. You look like a lick.
Yeah. Exactly. It looked like a come up.
I'm sorry, dog.
But he made it out, man.
Yeah, he made it out alive, though. He made it out alive. That's what matters.
Yeah, I made it out alive. That's all that matters. Yeah, and at the end of the day, I still didn't even get to take none of these things too, man. It's like I still have them in my drawer. Like, look, man, I almost lost my life over all of this. It's not even worth it. Could have just given it up. But this is also me too. Also being hard headed. Like, decided to stand up and fight. For my stuff. Just, once again, that's the problem that we have as us men. We always feel like we got to be tough to protect our stuff.
100%. I'm
saying that now. I'm saying, hey, I could have just given it away, but I don't even think I'm being truthful with myself. I think it's just like being in the heated in the moment. Like, you come from the area, like, you come from the community where you're always watching your back for stuff like that anyway. So when it was happening, it was like, oh, how do I get the hell up out of this situation? It wasn't thinking much more like, hey, look, take it and leave me alone. Because I know at the end of the day, it wasn't just take it and leave you alone. It's like a lot of times they'll take it and kill you on top of it as well, right? So it was, for me, it was like, man, how do I stay alive?
That's a fact.
By the grace of God, I'm still here. So yeah, that's one of those stupid things that I'll say. If we want to ask stupid questions about stuff that I blew money on, I was young. I mean, believe it or not, come on, man. I was 23, making $90K a year. I had my own jersey. You name it. I wore all the designer clothes. You know, at my age, like, you know, I was living a life, man, without a doubt.
100%. I can only listen, man. If I had 90K a year at 23, man.
I was living a life, man. And the good thing about it, a lot of times I didn't have time to spend my money because I was always on the road. So it was always like, so I always had cash. But once I started getting into the relationship and started getting into the marriage thing, I couldn't keep no cash for nothing. Man. Expensive, but no, definitely, man. I had my fair share of making money in trucking, man. And I think that's why I was like, regardless of what happened, I always kind of look at myself like, okay, cool, no problem. What is the next opportunity? How do I get it going? Like, what's the next thing to do? Let's get it going ASAP. So it's like getting a company from $0 to $1 million to me right about now. I felt like it's not that hard. So it's just too easy. To me, it's like, okay, how do I go from 1 million to 100 million, from 100 million to $1 billion? That's the challenge now. $1 million I could do it with my eyes closed. Let's do 100 million.
And as we're getting close to wrapping up here, like, you know, what is like your grand vision for yourself? Like when it's all said and done, like where do you see Fleeting being in the business landscape?
Man, that's a good question. And I think it's fairly okay to let the audience into this little secret that I think what I do see Fleeting becoming in the next, you know, God knows 5-10 years is we want to become the very first virtual trucking company. And what do we mean by that is, number one is we understand that 90% of trucking companies that make up supply chain logistics are small businesses, right? It's companies that own 2 or 3 or maybe 5 trucks. And we understand truck drivers never have the opportunity to truly become entrepreneurs in trucking and own multiple trucks. So with Fleeting, we have this new model where we're allowing truck drivers to become entrepreneurs, where they can own 2 or 3 trucks under the Fleeting platform, where it'll be managed and dispatched under the Fleeting platform, and that driver can receive a passive income up to $5,000 per month per truck. And we're also opening that up for regular individuals like you and you guys, where you guys can invest into owning a truck and get passive income of $5,000 per month. While you don't have to be a truck driver, you don't have to drive the truck yourself, you don't have to deal with the headache of registering, finding a driver, finding loads for the truck. Register that truck under the Fleeting platform, Fleeting fully managed, and kind of like dispatch that truck 365, 24/7, and bring regular individuals a passive income of $5 to $6K per month. So as we see trucking evolving, the opportunity we're seeing is we are allowing the common man, the regular individuals, no more just corporations owning fleets or big companies owning fleets. Now we want to kind of bring on that opportunity to regular individuals like you and I. You guys can own 2-3 trucks and get passive income without being a driver. So this is what we're seeing, what we'll be able to do in the trucking space, and the opportunity we'll be able to provide. Not just for our shareholders, not just for our drivers, not just for the shippers, but also for you guys, the consumers as well. How do you partake? How do you participate in all this is going on in supply chain? You consume every day. The headphone that you're wearing, the water that you're drinking, the food that you're eating. I mean, a truck driver had to deliver all of that, right? So how do you yourself become part of one of those people that reaps the benefit of supply chain logistics? So that's what Fleeting is doing, bringing more people into the space and create more opportunities.
That's amazing. That's amazing, man. So where can people find you?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. You can find me on Instagram. Jesus Christ, I don't even remember my Instagram name sometimes, so please don't mind me. Let me just look it up real quick. I'm not sure if it's Pierre Laguerre or Laguerre Pierre. I want to give you guys the right information. Oh, yeah, so my Instagram is Pierre_Laguerre5. Same thing with my Facebook, Pierre_Laguerre5. Same thing with LinkedIn. You can find me under Pierre Laguerre. Very simple. But Instagram is Pierre_Laguerre5. Definitely, man. You guys should follow if you have any questions or interested in becoming an entrepreneur in trucking as well, and have 1 or 2 trucks running the road while you earn some passive income. We'd definitely love to talk to you guys.
Sounds good. Sounds good, man. Yo, Pierre, this was great, man. This was such a insightful conversation, and business, life, never giving up. I mean, the whole lot, honestly.
Overcoming like hurdles, real hurdles, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, man. Thank you, man.
Yeah, man. Powerful story.
Yeah, man.